All right, so here we are. We're actually in the week before you do this assignment, your last overlapping assignment for develop and your regular work. So actually you will have already finished the code up unless you look at this earlier, or really the what we're doing for coffee run. So I actually had a chance to review your develop 3, and seems like most of you got a great start on that. I think it's really good to look at some of the other things, and I hope you did. But I do want to say, and this is good to understand, right? Is that just taking coffee run and making it a different kind of order is not the intention of this program, right? It's that you want to come up with something unique that is not, takes these concepts. And you'll see this because I'm going to show you the work that I did for this time, and you'll see what I mean by this if you don't already understand. But so I just want to say that, right? And it seems most of you got that, but I just want to be clear about that. So you can't just take coffee run and come up with a different kind of, product. You actually need to come up with something unique that really tests your ability or stretches you in that. Okay, so this week, this coming week, so this time, I've still got my first draft out there, honestly, because I spent more time than I thought I would doing the module setup. So I thought I'd spend some time here just going over my module setup. And then what I'm going to have you do for your reply here is just do some writing about the work that you've done, but share your print screens of the module work that you've done. And make sure also you show how you interact with your module via the console. Okay, so I should see at least like 3 or 4 print screens here. So I'll go over what I did here in mine. And I'll start with the code itself, right? So, by the way, what you need to do here is create a new directory under, if you haven't already, I think you probably have, but if you haven't already, create a new directory under your develop. Give it a unique name. Make sure all your code is contained within this directory. I called mine CSS images and JavaScript. Okay, and then I created my three files that are really just my modules for the player data and the game, and then of course main. And this was such a good exercise because and let me just say this, I really recommend, matter of fact, I think I'll make it a requirement here, is that you got to use something different than app, right? So create a unique object that your app is going to use. That way it really forces you, it really makes you think through why these things are set up the way they are. Okay, so so we'll start with the player data. So this is where I'm storing the data. And I had to modify this because one thing, and I think Robert mentioned this, and it's a really good point, is the way, and I had you write this in one of the questions, the way the coffee run data was stored in the object, it overwrote every time there was a new order. And for me, I didn't want that, right? I did not want that to happen. And for me, because the idea that I'm working on is I'm going to add a user. Now, this right now, and you'll see the the method in the game that or the way we interact with this method in a moment. But I called it a UUID, and the reason I called it UUID is I know when we get to Firebase that I'll be using a unique identifier for the user that Firebase creates. And so what I did here is different than what they did in the coffee run, and you can see that if you refer back. And one thing I really noticed at just the very beginning of this development was it felt a little bit like I was just setting up the coffee run but with my own names. But the moment, and this is really the point, the moment I started to deviate from what the coffee run was doing is when I really stretched myself and had to really spend some time understanding again what coffee run was doing, and then how I wanted my data to be stored so that I could then take these modules and methods and objects and take it now to the next logical part. But this was such, for me, I spent, I don't know, 3 hours yesterday and probably an hour this morning, and I'm still going to continue to work on it, right? But just to say, right? So where what I have is I'm adding my user, right? So actually, let me just show you this. Oh, actually, I'm trying to think which will be easier. So anyway, let's just look at game here, right? So this is creating. So I'm calling create player, right? So then I'm calling the add right here, the add method right on here, right? So this is how it's interacting, and it's sending it one thing, which is the UUID. Okay, so in this case, by the way, and this you need, and the reason I went ahead and set up main, so this is kind of what I would expect to see out of your output this time, right? Is, maybe your two major modules, and then your main. And again, really think about this, right? Don't just copy and paste this. And this is why I want you to create a unique name here, is that it's really makes you think about it. By how, what is main doing? It's pulling together into this IFI, pulling in those object names, right, so that you can work with them. And in this case, creating my new game, right, I call it my kitty cat 2.0. I just decided to not do dot here, and then I set up the new player data. Okay, so but let me just move over and show you, because I have it running here. Right, so this is just the and I'm just going to refresh because I think I've already been in here, right? So because I use main to already set up my game, I can actually see here new game. So it's sitting there, so right, so I can see my object, I can look at it, and I'm like, yeah, that's it. I can even look at dot pd player data dot data, right? So I can see there's nothing in here. There's nothing here, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to call this new or create player, right? And I've done this a couple times, so of course I have it here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call create player. I'm going to give it a key value, right? And then I'm also going to create another one, right? So I'm going to show you. So those are my two. So now if I look at new dot pd dot data, I will see I have two players in here with blank objects. Now, this is different than the coffee run, right? So why did I do this? I just wanted to set up, right? And that's what does this dot data, what's called, and it creates that UUID, right? UUID in this case is that unique, right? That's the field that's in there. It just takes the actual whatever that value I passed it, and then it just creates that on the object, right? So now what I want to do is I actually want to, because this is the way my program would work, is I want to actually now assume, okay, my user's logged in, I've captured my user data. Now, obviously when I do this, for real, I'll be wanting to capture more than just a name. In this case, it'll actually be, first name, last name, and something else. But I'll do that, I'll update that as I go through. And so now what I want to do is I actually want to update that player with a new game. And this is really where I spent a lot of my work here, is thinking about how I would do this. So first let me show you how it works. So I have, here we go. So we have, so when I call new game, I'm passing it the unique identifier. I'm also passing it a title for the game. Right, this is something I will in the future figure out how I will uniquely identify that game. I pass it a score and a date. Okay, so that's great, right? So now the other thing I can do here, and this is different. This is where we deviate from. Let me give it like a different. Let me give it 90, and let me give it like, okay. Now, so what I'm doing, and this is something that coffee run wouldn't do, and I know I'm repeating myself, but I think it's good to understand this, is that, and let me hit enter here, and then let me show you .bd.data, right? So now what I have here is I have on player Joe, I have two entries. And actually, in this case, it's objects within an object, right? And I uniquely, that's again why I'm passing the title. And that's the part that took me a little while to wrap my head around because there's different ways you could do this. And again, even though I know that ultimately my plan is to go to have Firebase do this for me, and some of it I'll just take care of it for me. But I think it's important to understand because some of you may choose not to go to the Firebase route, and that's okay, but you still have to have a way to capture data and present it back, right? And in this case, because my development differed from the coffee run, I had to figure out how to uniquely capture the data that I wanted in the way that I wanted it. Okay. So one thing that helped me to do this, I think I may have gotten rid of it, is actually went down and wrote like my, object I wanted. And then I built it out so that I had an idea of how I wanted it stored. Okay. So in this case, I'm not going to do it all, but that's how I did it. It helped me think through because it did take me a while to kind of just wrap my head around how I was uniquely doing it. And that's really where the work comes in. So then I decided to use let here instead of var because that's just another way to declare a variable, but it's block scope, so it's not going to bleed outside. And I created a new so by the way, the game, right, I'm passing in that object that, remember, so my game is here, right? So I'm calling add game, right? So add game here does passes, it gets the player data from my command. It gives me some output, and then it calls PD player data update, and that's what calls here with that object. Okay, so then what I did is I created I created a new variable, which then is actually a new object. And then I said this dot data, and then game UUID. And this is how I uniquely, I pointed to that object's location, that specific object that was passed, that specific player to the UID, and then I added game title. Right? So again, game title. So this is actually pointing to that person that already existed in the object, right? And what happens is, as you try to do this, you're going to see, and this is what happened for me, is I figured out, oh, yeah, what it's doing is it's overwriting every time because that was the idea of the coffee run. And they clearly said it. But until you go to try to build it, this is, again, I'm saying, repeating. This is where the learning happens, okay? Okay, so then what I did is I then just said, at this data in my data, at the UID, right? And then I added, this is added because it's coming in from my object. So I grab the game.title, right? That key value pair, right? Or that coming in all the object, that location in that incoming object. And then I said equal to this new object that I created, and that's what created this. Right? Okay, I hope that kind of helps you, but this is just my thinking, right? So here's what I want you to do. I want you to have at this point, and I know one thing I'm lagging on here, but it's because I spent some more time than I thought. And I was pretty much done with this. I think what I have left to do here, it's not a lot. I do need just to fill these out, right? So this is not bad. I actually have these three done. Right, so I just need to fill out a descriptor here. And then this was important, and I know I'm probably going to have some additional modules that I'm going to add later. So I'm okay with this now, although knowing this will need to be updated as my development continues. So I guess it wasn't that bad. All I really need to add is descriptors here. So let me just complete this. Right, so first you can give us an updated draft, although I noticed many of you got a great start on that. Right, and then what I want you to do is share print screens of your module work, right? So here's what I would, and I could do this, like I could do a print screen here, right? So I could do, here's my player data, now there, right? And I could take a game one. I'm just taking print screens just to show you the idea. And then, upload them, and then there's my main, right? Okay, so then what I would do is I'd upload them to Google Drive. And you've seen them in the video, but I will include them here. And this is really, again, the way we share, the way we learn is like, this is my approach. This is how I did it, right? And the idea is for you to stretch yourself, come up with a unique way you're implementing your app development based on the patterns that you've seen, okay? All right, so then I noticed there wasn't replies then last time, so I at least want you to do a reply. I want you to look at other people's and give them some kind of feedback, right? Give me some kind of feedback about what I've done here too. So matter of fact, I'll probably just put it up in here so you can, and then in your post, I should see a link to your, and again, it should be at least 3, right? Because you have these are your major, your foundational modules that you're building, right? All right, so I hope that helps you out. Wow, so we're actually moving now into the last part, so we won't have any more of this double up idea. So starting next week, right, we'll have challenges, we'll have some free code camp stuff, but develop will really be the major focus for the last part of our class. All right, talk to you later. Bye.